Monitor hypothesis. The monitor hypothesis asserts that a learner's learned system acts as a monitor to what they are producing. In other words, while only the acquired system is able to produce spontaneous speech, the learned system is used to check what is being spoken. Before the learner produces an utterance, he or she internally scans it for errors, and uses the learned system to make corrections. Self-correction occurs when the learner uses the monitor to correct a sentence after it is uttered. According to the hypothesis, such self-monitoring and self-correction are the only functions of conscious language learning. The monitor model then predicts faster initial progress by adults than children, as adults use this monitor when producing L2, target language, utterances before having acquired the ability for natural performance, and adult learners will input more into conversation earlier than children. 3 conditions for use of the monitor. According to Krashen, for the monitor to be successfully used, 3 conditions must be met. The acquirer/learner must know the rule. This is a very difficult condition to meet because it means that the speaker must have had explicit instruction on the language form that he or she is trying to produce. The acquirer must be focused on correctness. He or she must be thinking about form, and it is difficult to focus on meaning and form at the same time. The acquirer/learner must have time to use the monitor. Using the monitor requires the speaker to slow down and focus on form. Difficulties using the monitor. There are many difficulties with the use of the monitor, making the monitor rather weak as a language tool. Knowing the rule, this is a difficult condition to meet, because even the best students do not learn every rule that is taught, cannot remember every rule they have learned, and can't always correctly apply the rules they do remember. Furthermore, not every rule of a language is always included in a text or taught by the teacher. Having time to use the monitor, there is a price that is paid for the use of the monitor. The speaker is then focused on form rather than meaning, resulting in the production and exchange of less information, thus slowing the flow of conversation. Some speakers over-monitor to the point that the conversation is painfully slow and sometimes difficult to listen to. The rules of language make up only a small portion of our language competence. Acquisition does not provide 100% language competence. There is often a small portion of grammar, punctuation, and spelling that even the most proficient native speakers may not acquire. While it is important to learn these aspects of language, since writing is the only form that requires 100% competence, these aspects of language make up only a small portion of our language competence. Due to these difficulties, Krashen recommends using the monitor at times when it does not interfere with communication, such as while writing. Natural order hypothesis. See also, order of acquisition. The natural order hypothesis states that all learners acquire a language in roughly the same order. This order is not dependent on the ease with which a particular language feature can be taught. Some features, such as third-person s, he runs, are easy to teach in a classroom setting, but are not typically acquired until the later stages of language acquisition. This hypothesis was based on the morpheme studies by Goulet and Burt, which found that certain morphemes were predictably learned before others during the course of second language acquisition. Affective filter hypothesis. The affective filter is an impediment to learning or acquisition caused by negative emotional, affective, responses to one's environment. It is a hypothesis of second language acquisition theory, and a field of interest in educational psychology and general education. According to the affective filter hypothesis, certain emotions, such as anxiety, self-doubt, and near boredom interfere with the process of acquiring a second language. They function as a filter between the speaker and the listener that reduces the amount of language input the listener is able to understand. These negative emotions prevent efficient processing of the language input. The hypothesis further states that the blockage can be reduced by sparking interest, providing low-anxiety environments and bolstering the learner's self-esteem. According to Krashen, 1982, there are ways to lower the affective filter. One is allowing for a silent period, not expecting the student to speak before they have received an adequate amount of comprehensible input according to their individual needs. A teacher needs to be aware of the student's home life, as this domain is the biggest contributor to the affective filter. It is also important to take into note that those who are learning English for the first time in the USA have many hurdles to get over. To lower the affective filter, a teacher needs to not add to the hurdles to jump over. Reception and influence. According to Wolfgang Butzgam and John A. W. Caldwell, 2009, comprehensible input, defined by Krashen as understanding messages, is indeed the necessary condition for acquisition, but it is not sufficient. Learners will crack the speech code only if they receive input that is comprehended at two levels. They must not only understand what is meant but also how things are quite literally expressed, i.e. how the different meaning components are put together to produce the message. This is the principle of dual comprehension. In many cases, both types of understanding can be conflated into one process, in others not. The German phrase "Wie spät ist es?" is perfectly understood as "What time is it?" However, learners need to know more. How late is it? That's what the Germans say literally, which gives us the anatomy of the phrase, and the logic behind it. Only now is understanding complete, and we come into full possession of the phrase, which can become a recipe for many more sentences, such as "Wie alt ist es?" / "How old is it?" etc. According to Butzgam and Caldwell, 2009:64, duly comprehended language input is the fuel for our language learning capacities. It is both necessary and sufficient. The theory underlies Krashen and Terrell's comprehension-based language learning methodology known as the natural approach, 1983. The focal skills approach, first developed in 1988, is also based on the theory. Citation needed. English as a Second Language podcast was also inspired by Krashen's ideas on providing comprehensible input to language acquirers. The most popular competitors are the skill-building hypothesis and the comprehensible output hypothesis. The input hypothesis is related to instructional scaffolding. Applications in language teaching. The input hypothesis is often applied in practice with TPR storytelling. Levels. Krashen designates learners into beginner and intermediate levels. Beginning level. Intermediate level. Teaching uses comprehensible input drawn from academic texts, but modified so that subject matter is sheltered, or limited. Note that sheltered subject matter teaching is not for beginners or native speakers of the target language. In sheltered instruction classes, the focus is on meaning, not form. As a practical matter, comprehensible input works with the following teaching techniques. If you like the videos, please like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell.